This is who this message is for. If you have ever been at a place in your life where you have had some kind of a past disappointment, a past failure, a past hurt, and you know deep in your heart that it's been very difficult for you to let go of it, and it's been keeping you from moving forward. It's keeping you from realizing your full potential. It's keeping you from having a happy, fulfilling, prosperous relationship. It's keeping you from taking significant chances and going after your goals and your dreams. It has been keeping you from starting the business. It's been keeping for you from actually going back and trying to get that other degree. It's been keeping you from asking for the raise and the promotion. Listen, whatever you have dealt with in the past that you seem to be carrying with you as extra weight, and I believe that all of us have something that we're carrying with us from the past. We've got some extra weight, some extra luggage. And so what I want to do today is I want to help you to go ahead and let yourself go free. In other words, I want to help you to be able to release yourself from some of that old luggage. And so the message tonight is entitled, Let It Go. Oh, you hear me? Listen, let it go. But Andy, you don't understand what he did to me. Let it go. But Andy, you don't understand how my business partner betrayed me. Let it go. But Andy, you don't understand. I trusted this financial planner and they misallocated my funds. Let it go. Listen, but Andy, you don't understand. I lent them the money. They told me that they were going to pay me back. Let it go. But Andy, you don't understand. They let me go from the job. I was dedicated. I worked so hard. I was putting in all the hours. Listen, let it go. No, Andy, you don't understand. You don't understand. I bent over backwards for this person. What do you mean let it go? Listen, you need to let it go. And I'm telling you right now, I know that is one of the most difficult things to do, is to let go, especially if somebody has done you wrong. Especially if you still feel as if, many of us, sometimes we believe that if we let it go, if we decide that we're going to forgive somebody, if we decide that we're going to go ahead and just sort of move on with our life, then what it means is that we pretty much have accepted and we're condoning what that person did to us or what that situation was. And oftentimes when you let it go, when you decide to let it go, it doesn't mean that you are saying that, you know what that person did to you was okay, or what that company did to you was okay. A lot of times when you decide to let it go, it's not really about them, it's about you. Because here's what I need you to understand. A lot of times when you're holding on to that grudge, when you're holding on to that resentment, what you're doing is you are keeping yourself from pushing forward. You're keeping yourself from that happy relationship. You're keeping yourself from actually building and growing the business. You're keeping yourself from that next level in your life. You're keeping yourself from getting to that place in your life where you can really be able to have great contentment and happiness. And so I need you to understand, because it's not an easy concept for people to understand, that when you decide to let go, when you decide that, you know what, I'm no longer going to hold on to this resentment. I'm no longer going to hold on to what they did to me. I'm no longer going to buy into that storyline. I'm just going to simply let go. Understand this, that when you do that, the person who comes out on top is you. Why? Because you're setting yourself free. You're allowing yourself to ultimately be able to get to the next level. And so I know some of you are already ahead of me, but do me a favor right now, before I go ahead and share this story with you, I want you right now, put hashtag let it go, hashtag let it go, because I want to speak specifically to that person who is ready to make the very, very, very difficult decision of deciding to letting go, whether that means forgiving somebody who has hurt you, letting go to an old story that you're holding on to that's keeping you from moving forward in your life, letting go to that draining, toxic relationship. And I'm not talking about your marriage, because you need to fight for that. I'm talking about those negative relationships, those people that are around you that don't pour into your vision, that don't pour into your dream, that are keeping you from making great things happen in your business, that want to talk more about your problems than they want to do about your purpose. And so that's something that we're going to be talking about. Why is it that so many of us spend more time talking about our problems than we do with our purpose? I'm going to say that one more time. Why is it that so many of us spend so much more time talking about our problems than we do our actual purpose? And so what I need you to understand is this, that this is the time right now that you need to start letting it go. Here's what I realized. So obviously you all know right now, somebody said, Andy, it's okay. You could go ahead and share the story. This is a safe space. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving me this space to be able to share this personal story. So all of you know right now, my wife is Coach Cassandra Henriquez, and I'm happily married and so grateful that I have this amazing, extraordinary wife. But before I was with my wife, there was somebody that I was dating. And I had been dating them for 6 years. And so this was a long-term relationship that I was in. And this person that I was dating made the decision that they wanted to actually continue on with their education, and they wanted to pursue an actual law degree. And so this person decided they're going to pursue their law degree. But one of the things that we actually made the decision was that, realizing that she wanted to pursue her law degree, but unfortunately, she didn't necessarily have all the resources. And so she needed to get a student loan. Now, I want you to follow me with this. This is somebody I was in a relationship with, a long-term relationship with, that decided to do something positive by continuing with her education. But there was something that was keeping her from being able to do that. And that thing was lack of resources. And so one of the things is that she needed to be able to pay for her education. She needed to be able to secure and get a loan. Well, unfortunately, she could not secure the loan on herself because unfortunately her credit was not where it needed to be. And so she asked me, being her boyfriend, if there's any way that I could go ahead and co-sign on that particular loan on her behalf. And so I realized that in many ways in our relationship, there are other times that she asked me to play team, other times that she asked me to do things that I wasn't willing to do it. And so I thought that at a minimum that, you know what, that this should be a great gesture on my behalf, especially considering that there are other times that I probably should have helped out with certain things and I chose not to. And so I said, you know what, this time I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go all in. And so I went ahead and I co-signed on a private student loan. Now, a portion of those private student loans, I was going to use a portion for me in real estate that I was starting to get involved in. And she was going to use the rest of the student loan to be able to pay for her education, her continued education. And so what happened is, as you can only imagine, is that here she is, she makes it through and actually attains her law degree, which is an extraordinary, awesome thing. But around the time that she actually attains her law degree, we decide that we're no longer going to be together. And so we actually separate. And so we decide to go our separate ways. In other words, we broke up, folks. We broke up, all right? There's no way to really sugarcoat it. We broke up. Now, here's what I need you to understand. Once we broke up, I was under the assumption that, you know what, even though we broke up, the right thing to do in her particular case, since I co-signed on the student loan, is to continue and move forward on the agreement that we made, was that she was going to pay off her portion of the student loan. And so this is where it's going to get real ugly, folks. I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit of my business. When we decided to go ahead and break up, she decided, you know what? We're no longer together. And yes, you did co-sign on the student loan, but since we are no longer together, I am no longer going to make the payments on the student loan because I figure you'll be able to handle it. And so the disposition was, you know what, Andy, you got it. You'll be okay. Go ahead and take care of this. And so I need you to understand what begins to happen to me. I can tell you this story now and be able to smile, but I can tell you when that happened, there was no smiling that was taking place. Let me make you understand something. I was so upset. I was so angry. Every single month when it was time to make a payment on that student loan, my blood began to boil. My neck began to stiffen. I started to clench onto my fist. I would be pacing back and forth. I would be calling this person all kind of names in my head. I would be having all kind of evil thoughts that were going on in my mind. I would sometimes be on the phone with friends and tell them, hey, can you believe what this person has done? And every single month, I would rehearse and literally revisit this experience. And the reason why I was so upset is because I was so blessed and fortunate that when I graduated from college, I essentially graduated with no student loans. I got a full scholarship to Florida State University. I got my undergraduate degree, my master's degree with no student loans. And now here I am I co-signed on a student loan. Wait a second, I didn't tell you the amount, for $42,000. I'm gonna say that one more time. I co-signed on a student loan for $42,000, and now I broke up with somebody, and now I was on the line for the entire student loan. Are you listening to me? And so you can only imagine, I'm telling you right now, trust me on this, there's a reason why I can smile right now. There's a reason why I can laugh about this. Listen, there was no smiling. There was no laughing. This was not a laughing matter. I am telling you that at the time when every single month when I had to make those payments, I'm telling you, I would get so angry and so frustrated about the situation that I can assure you that if you literally pulled some of the blood out of my bloodstream, if you were to pull some of my blood and inject it into an animal, inject it into something else, they would probably die because of the amount of toxins that were probably in my blood as a result of me being so angry. And so here's what I want you to understand. What I did, and I'm ashamed to admit this, what I did for over a year was blame that person for that situation. Every single month when it was time for me to make that student loan payment, boy, my blood was boiling. I was so upset. I was so angry. I had all kind of terrible thoughts and so forth every single month. And if you were to listen to me tell you the story, I would tell you, can you believe what she did? Can you believe that I was only trying to help her out? Can you believe that I decided to co-sign on this student loan, that we broke up, and she couldn't even think enough of me or even enough of herself to go ahead and pay this student loan? It is her fault. I cannot believe her. And let me tell you something. Every single time when I continue to play the blame game, every single time that I continue to go ahead and accuse her, every single time that I just talked about the problem, guess what? Nothing changed. And then here's what I want you to understand. Here's what the learning moment is. I finally came to the realization one day and I said, wait a second, Andy, you can do all the blaming that you want. You can go ahead and talk about how she did you wrong, how she had you co-sign on a student loan and she never paid it back. But I said, Andy, as long as you play that position, there's nothing that you can do. Listen, as long as I decided to be the victim in that situation, there was nothing that I could do about it. And then I had to go ahead and look in the mirror, and I had to be honest with myself, and I had to face the situation for what it really was and take all my feelings and emotion out of it. And what I realized was, number one, that I was not forced to co-sign on that student loan. I did it on my free will. Number two, when you co-sign on anything, the reason why they're having you co-sign is because they already deemed that the person who is going to be responsible for the debt is likely not going to repay the debt. So they're asking the co-signer to step in and say, if this person does not sign off on this debt or does not pay off the debt, that you are saying, and you are raising your hand, that I am going to be the one to do it. And so both of those things were the facts. I wasn't forced to do it. And number two, that was literally what I signed up for. You ever heard somebody say, I didn't sign up for that? Well, guess what? In that particular situation, that is what I signed up for. And so finally, I came to the realization that as long as I kept blaming her, and as long as the situation was her fault, then that means that there is nothing that I could do about it. And because I was so boiled up with anger, and because I was so angry, all I kept doing was making the minimum payments, because of course I was saying to myself, there is no way that I'm paying off on somebody else's debt. Listen to the mindset. There's no way I'm paying off on somebody else's debt. And so I didn't want to take responsibility for it. I didn't want to take it on because I looked at it as this is not my debt. But here's what I want you to understand. And here's what I want you to realize. Everything changed when I decided, wait a second, Andy, this is your responsibility. Everything changed when I decided to take full ownership of the situation. You see, once I decided to stop blaming her, and once I decided to take full ownership of the situation, now I owned it. So now I have the ability to be able to change it. Understand this, that when you hold on to resentment, when you hold on to the past, when you hold on to something that somebody quote unquote done to you, and you decide to play the victim role, Well, what happens is you have relinquished all of your power. You have given your power away. Understand this, that you cannot change your situation. You cannot change your future relationships. You cannot change your finances. You cannot change your health. You cannot change anything unless you first take full ownership of it. Understand, listen carefully. And so nothing changed for me until I made the decision to myself and said, wait a second, Andy, this is your fault. You need to own this. And once I made the decision to own it, all of a sudden now the anger began to go away. All of a sudden now I had clarity of thought, and I started to now come up with a strategy. Okay, well, now, since this is your debt and it's no longer you're the victim, how are you going to go ahead and pay this thing off at an accelerated rate? Once I made that change, once I made that transition, once there was a mental shift, all of a sudden everything changed. From how I felt physically, and also not only that, but me taking personal responsibility. Listen carefully. All of a sudden now I was on the fast track, and I can tell you right now, as I share that story with you, that debt that I had, guess what the balance is? $0. I paid it off 100%. Now, the only reason why I was able to do that was because I made a shift in my mindset, and I stopped playing the blaming game. And I decided to take full ownership and responsibility. And so here's what I want you to understand, that right now you are seeking a breakthrough in your life. You're hoping to have a breakthrough in your relationships. Maybe you've been looking for that special someone. You've been hoping to find a happy, fulfilling marriage, or you want to make your marriage more happy and fulfilling, whatever it might be. What I want you to understand is, unless you're willing to let go of whatever has happened to you in the past, whatever has happened in those old relationships, you will never be able to have the kind of relationship that you want to have in your life right now. Listen carefully. For some of you who are entrepreneurs, that unless you're willing to let go of what didn't work out in the past, of what failed to work out for you in the past, of who cheated you, of who did you wrong, of what business partner walked away, of who misallocated your funds, or how things didn't work out in the past, until you're willing to release that story, understand this, you will never be able to get to the place that you want to do. I believe that it was T.D. Jakes that I heard say this one time. He said, when you hold on to your history, you do it at the expense of your destiny. I'm going to say that one more time. Remember, T.D. Jakes said this. It was a powerful statement. He said, when you hold on to your history, you do it at the expense of your destiny. Understand this, that many of us, we are forfeiting our destiny because we are living from the place of our history. We are reliving the story. And so what we do is we spend more time talking about our problems than we do about our purpose. And so I need you to flip and change the order. I need you to start spending more time talking about your purpose than you do about your problems. I'm going to say that one more time. I need you to spend more time talking about your purpose than you do about your problems. Understand this, understand this. If you continue to live from the place of what has happened to you in the past, it is going to keep you from moving forward. If you continue to broadcast all of your problems and what he did and what she did and what your past business partner did and how they fired you and how they let you go and how they violated your trust and how they did this, it makes you a victim, and it doesn't allow you to be able to be the victor. It doesn't allow you to make great things happen. I want you right now to start putting your purpose over your problems. You need your purpose to be stronger than your problems. You hear me? You need to talk more about your purpose than you do about your problems. You need to focus more on your purpose than you do on your problems. Coach Kaz, I need a power cord. You need to focus more on your purpose than you do on your problems. And so too many of us, listen carefully, there are too many of us who are spending day after day after day after day. And here's what we're doing. We keep focusing primarily on our problems. And so what I'm saying to you right now is this is the time to start putting more focus on your purpose, more focus on what you've been called to do than your problems. And so I need you to make the transition right now from going and just focusing on your problems to learning to put more of the focus and the emphasis on your purpose. What is your purpose? And listen to this. Every time you continue to live on in the history, every time you continue to broadcast your problems, every time you continue to broadcast what he did to you, what she did to you, what the past business partner did to you, what the circumstances did to you, every time you do that, you are diminishing your purpose. You are diminishing your destiny. Every single time you do that, you are chipping away, you are postponing, you are delaying the thing that you are called to do. And so I need you right now to create a shift and learn to let go. That was a big, powerful lesson for me. For a long time, I wouldn't even be able to share the story that I share with you because I was still in the story, very much emotionally attached. But now that I pulled out of the story, I'm gonna tell you, I learned a very valuable lesson, and I'm hoping to pass that lesson on to you. Because I know right now that there's so many of you who you are on the verge of having a breakthrough. You are on the verge of finding that significant other person that you've been searching for. You are on the verge of starting that new business. You are on the verge of getting to that next level. You're on the verge of literally doing the thing that you've been called to do. However, what's holding you back is because you're still living off of your backstory of something that has happened to you in the past. I used to have this dog, this German Shepherd, amazing German Shepherd. And, you know, I had to leave and I had to go away for a business trip. And I wasn't going to be there for an entire weekend. And so I had to reach out to one of my friends and I asked her to go ahead and step in for me. I said, listen, I'm going to be away. I need you to do me a favor and go ahead and make sure that while I'm away and I head out, I'm living in South Florida. I was headed out to the West Coast. I said, while I'm out on the West Coast, do me a favor, go by the house every day and make sure that you actually feed the dog, make sure the dog has food, make sure the dog has water. Can you do that for me? And my friend said, absolutely, Andy, I can do that for you. And so I went away on the trip. And so the first day I was away on the trip, I called back, I called my friend, I said, listen, hey, could you do me a quick favor? Could you do me a quick favor? Let me just want to know, I just want to know, how did things go? Did everything work out fine with Jasmine? She said, listen, everything is perfectly fine with Jasmine. I took her for a walk. I gave her some water. Everything is cool. I said, fantastic. 2 more days here at the conference. I'll be back. And then so I checked in on the second day with my friend. They said, listen, Andy, don't worry about it. Don't even bother worrying. Everything's perfectly fine. I took her for a walk. I gave her food. Everything is perfectly fine. And so on the third day, I'm getting ready. I'm going to be headed back the following day. And so I said, let me just check in one more time. So I called my friend up. I'm like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? I said, listen, just checking in. How's everything with Jasmine? And then when I hear my friend's voice, her voice sounds really strange. And so I'm trying to figure out, well, why do you sound like this? What is going up? And she says, well, she said, Andy, listen, she said, I just left the urgent care. I said, what do you mean you left the urgent care? I said, is everything okay? Did Jasmine bite you? Did something happen? She says, no, everything's okay. I said, well, what happened? She said, listen, here's what happened. I went over to your house and I went to go get Jasmine to go walk her like I did every time before. I put her on the leash. I walked her outside. But this time when we walked outside, she saw a squirrel. And literally she stopped dead in her tracks. She started pointing her front paws forward. Her tail shot straight out, and I could tell she was focused in on the squirrel. And so she said, my friend said, I held on to the leash and I started pulling back. But she says, as you know, Jasmine is a pretty big dog. And so at the time, my dog weighed about 80 something pounds. And my friend was a very small, petite young lady, right? She weighed maybe about 115 pounds. So my dog lunged forward. And because the dog lunged forward, my friend fell to the ground. Now, when she fell to the ground, she held on to the leash as hard as she could. My dog kept running, and my dog literally dragged her across the pavement. She twisted her ankle, and she got a whole bunch of scabs and scratches for being pulled across the ankle. And literally, she had to run on over to the urgent care. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, oh my goodness. So I'm telling my friend, listen, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? She says, no, I'm going to be okay. I thought maybe I broke my ankle, but actually it's just, it just really, really bad sprain. It's swollen. I got to ice it and everything. I said, oh my goodness. I said, well, I don't know what your medical bill is going to be, but I can reimburse you. I'm so sorry. I can't believe that happened. She said, no, it's perfectly fine or whatever. And once I was absolutely certain that she was totally okay, once I was totally fine, she was okay, I just had to ask her. The golden question had to come up. And so here's what I asked her. I said, let me ask you a question. When Jasmine decided to lunge forward, And when she started to run forward, why didn't you just let go of the leash? Why didn't you just let go? And my friend, there was a moment of silence on the phone. And then she said, Andy, I don't know. And so here's what I want you to understand. There's an old proverb, and here's what it says, that you got to let go or be dragged. I'm going to say that one more time. You got to let go or be dragged. And so here's what I want you to understand. There are many of us, we're holding on to the leash. I don't know what's at the other end of your leash. Whatever it is that you're holding on to, maybe you're holding on to a past bad breakup. Maybe you're holding on to something that your ex-husband and ex-wife did. Maybe you're holding on to something that an old business partner did. Maybe you're holding on to the fact that you got let go from the job. Maybe you're holding on to the fact that something didn't quite work out for you. But here's what I want you to understand, that you have to let go or you will be dragged. And so my friend had no idea why she was still holding on. She said, oh man, Andy, I don't know why I was holding on. She said, I don't know. I just had to hold on. And so here's what I want you to understand. We go around all day long, holding on to things that are pulling us in the opposite direction of our dreams, holding on to things that we know are not serving us, holding on to things that are keeping us from getting to that next level in our life, holding on to things that are keeping us from having great relationships, that are keeping us from having rewarding businesses, that are keeping us to get in the next place in our business, that are keeping us from having extraordinary health, that are keeping us from actually living out our purpose. And what I want you to understand, I want to remind you, is that you've got to let go or be dragged. When you hold on to a grudge, when you hold on to resentment, somebody said that holding on to a grudge, holding on to resentment is the equivalent of you swallowing poison and hoping that the other person is going to die. The reason why that's a powerful analogy is that when you're holding on to something, the only person that you are creating toxins in, the only person that you are really hurting is yourself. And so when you're holding on to a grudge for too long, guess what's happening? It's literally like you're the one taking the poison and you're expecting the other person to die. And so what I need you to understand is at some point, listen carefully, at some point, you got to say to yourself, wait a second, you know what? I've been holding on to this for way too long. I'm not going to let this control my life. As a matter of fact, it is time for me to take back my power. Understand this, that when you let go, what you're doing oftentimes is you are taking back your power. A lot of times we don't realize we become powerless when we decide that we're going to play the victim role, when we decide that we're going to go ahead and blame somebody else or something else for our current situation. And so at some point, we just got to make the decision, wait a second, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and let this thing go. It is time to release. And some of you think that by holding on to a grudge, by holding on to some resentment, that you are punishing the other person. But understand this, you are only punishing yourself. And so if you want to get revenge, the best revenge is letting go. Write that down. The best revenge is letting go. I'm going to say that one more time. The best revenge is letting go. Listen, let me tell you something. When I got stuck with that student loan, when I co-signed on that student loan, and my ex told me, listen, I'm not paying off that student loan. That's your student loan now, Andy. Let me tell you something. The best revenge was when I decided to let go and I moved on with my life. And not only that, but eventually I am pretty sure she got the notice when it said that the loan was paid off in full. So she had to be looking like, you know what? Obviously, he must be doing okay because he paid off that entire student loan. Oh, yes, I did pay the entire student loan off. It is zero. You hear me? Zero. But that only happened because I was willing to let go. And so listen, the best revenge is letting go. And so listen, you want to get even with somebody? You want to get even? Let go. Say bye-bye, let go, move on with your life. Make something happen with your life. Stop holding on to the resentment. Stop holding on to the bitterness. Stop holding on to the anger as if you are getting even with somebody. And understand this, that the best revenge, that's right, the best revenge is letting go, letting go. And so if you're ready to let some things go right now, if you are ready to take your life to the next level, if you are seriously serious about elevating your game, and this is every aspect of your life. We're talking about elevating your relationship. We're talking about elevating your business. We're talking about elevating your health. Understand this, that you cannot start the next chapter of your life if you keep rewriting and rereading the previous chapters in your life. You cannot advance like that. There are too many of us that we're wondering why we can't take our businesses to the next level. We're wondering why we can't take our relationships to the next level. We're wondering why we can't get to the next level, but we don't realize that we are still living in our backstory. Most of our dialogue, most of our energy is around what happened to us in the past. Listen, stop talking about what he or she did to you. Get over it. Let it go. It's time to release. Andy, that's harsh. I understand. But I need you to get this because it's the only way that you're going to get to that next level. You want revenge? Let go. You want to get to the next level? Let go. Right now, do me a favor. Put hashtag release. Hashtag release. If you're ready to release right now, you are ready to release the things that are holding you back. You're ready to release the backstories in your life. If you are ready to release every and anything that is literally holding you back, I want you right now to put hashtag release. Hashtag release. Hashtag release. It is time to release all those things that are literally holding you back. So yes, Julia, release. Yes, Betty, release. Yes, Roz, release. Yes, Lakeisha, release. Yes, Jeraine, release. Yes, Rosie, release. Yes, Christy, release. Yes, Stephanie, release. Yes, Elizabeth, release. I'm telling you, yes, Joyce, release. Oh my goodness, you guys are tuning in like crazy. Yes, Lee, release, release. Hashtag release. Yes, Vanetta, release. Violet, release. Elizabeth, release. Yes, Butterfly, release. I love it. Hashtag release, 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 release. If you are ready to get to that next level, you got to go ahead and do this right now. Do it for yourself. Hashtag release, because I want you to understand this, that this is your time right now to get to the next level. But you cannot get to the next level if you are carrying all of this heavy luggage with you. And so it is time right now for you to simply let it go. That's all I'm asking you to do. I know it's not as easy as it sounds. Trust me on this. That story I shared with you about the student loan, it took me 1.5 years, maybe even longer, to be able to fully be able to release and let that thing go. But I'm telling you, once I was willing to let go, everything shifted. When you let go, you are not doing it for anybody else. You are doing it for yourself. You are doing it so that you can take your life to the next level. You are doing it so that you can move on with your life. Listen, my wife is a matchmaker. She is a relationship coach. She is a love coach. And I hear her a lot of times when she's talking to her clients. And one of the biggest things that is keeping her clients from having happy, fulfilling relationships is because they are still living in the story of a past relationship. They're still living in the story of something that's happened to them before. And what I'm saying to you is, if you are ready to get to that next level, it is time to let go. It is time to let go. So I want you to do a couple of things right now, because here's what I want you to think about. I want you to just be honest with yourself. And I want you at some point to put some time to just look at yourself in the mirror and spend some one-on-one time with yourself. And I want you to be honest with yourself and say, where is there any place in my life that I'm holding on to some resentment, some pain, past disappointments, a past backstory, and it's no longer serving me? And wherever that's showing up in your life, I want you to have the courage. I want you to have the boldness to go ahead and let go. Not let go because you're releasing somebody of the responsibility of what they did, not because you believe what they did was right, but because you are ready to go to the next level, because it is necessary for you to be able to get to that next level. Remember what I told you. You literally need to learn to let go, or you need to be dragged. And too many of us are holding on to something that is pulling us in the opposite direction of our goals and our dreams. And so you got to be willing to let go or be dragged. And so I'm telling you again, you need to let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. That is the one thing It's not the easiest thing, but that is the one thing that I want you to take away from this marriage, from this marriage, from this message, that you need to let go. It is time to let go of this old story that's been keeping you back, and it is time for you to step into this amazing, extraordinary next chapter of your life. I know some great things are going to happen for you, and I don't believe that it's any kind of coincidence why you are listening in on this message. Listen, I'm hoping that by the time you're done processing what I shared in this message, that if you weigh whatever, you knew what you weighed before you heard this message, and you weigh yourself again, I'm hoping that you would have shed a couple of pounds. And the reason why I'm hoping you're going to shed some pounds is because some of the weight that you've been carrying on your back, some of the weight that you've been carrying through your backstory, some of the weight that you've been carrying in your life, I want you to let it go. Do you hear me? I want you to let it go. And the reason why I want you to let it go is because I need you to understand this, that your time is the most valuable thing that you have. And I need you to understand this. You need to stop spending time talking more about your problems than you are about your purpose. Remember what I told you. You want to spend more time talking about your purpose than you are about your problems. Here's what I find. There are too many people who have the order in reverse. They're spending more time talking about their problems than they are about their purpose. Reverse the order. Spend more time talking about your purpose. Spend more time talking about your dreams. Spend more time talking about your vision than talking about your problems, talking about your past, talking about your history. Listen, we don't want to hear about your history anymore. We want to hear about what's next in your life. What are you going to make happen? Remember, I told you, purpose over problems, purpose over problems. And then remember what I tell you, when you choose to let go, what you are doing is you are taking your power back. You see, when you play the victim role, when you blame your past circumstances, when you blame the ex-husband, when you blame the ex-wife, when you blame everybody else, you are the victim. If you are the victim, it means you are powerless. It means you can't do anything about it. But when you decide to let go, when you decide to take full ownership, you take your power back. I want you to take your power back. And some of you have been trying to go ahead and pay somebody back by holding on to the resentment and reminding them of all the things they did to you. And what I want to remind you is that the best revenge is letting go. Just let go. Stop trying to punish people by revisiting and reminding them of all the things that they did. They know what they did. They got to deal with that themselves. But if you want to move on with your life, you need to go ahead and let it go. Just release it. Cut the umbilical cord. The best revenge is letting go. I believe that most of us, in order for us to get to the next level, in order for us to move on, in order for us to get closer to our goals and our dreams, we're always thinking about the things that we need to accomplish and the things that we need to attain. But I tell you something that is really, really important, oftentimes, is you actually letting go. Now, I don't know what that thing is for you, what that thing is that you need to let go of. Perhaps you need to let go of some toxic relationships. Maybe you need to let go of a grudge or something you're holding up against somebody. Maybe perhaps you need to let go of something that is no longer serving you. There's a method, an ideology, or a thought process that is no longer serving you. It's no longer allowing you to accomplish your goals and your dreams. And what happens to so many of us, we just continue to cling on. We hold on to those old toxic relationships. We hold on to those old ideas. We hold on to those old grudges. We hold on to something that is keeping us from moving forward. And what I'm saying to you is this: if you want to take your business to the next level, if you want to take your relationship to the next level, if you want to take your life to the next level, then it is going to be mandatory that you shed some things. It's going to be mandatory that you leave some things behind. And you see, that's not always a very easy concept for people to grasp. As a matter of fact, most of us will hold on to things all the way to our detriment. As a matter of fact, you know what? We often associate holding on with being powerful and being strong. And we say, hey, you know what? It takes a lot of strength to hold on. But here's what I want to tell you, and I want you to write this down. You know what? Sometimes it takes even more strength to let go than it does to hold on. And so I know that there's some relationships that perhaps some people have been in your life for a very long time.
And so it's difficult for you to grasp the concept or the idea of actually letting go of those relationships. But those relationships, unfortunately, the ones that we need to shed ourselves are the ones that are toxic, the ones that are draining, the ones that, unfortunately, those relationships, that those people who are constantly undermining the things that you're looking to make happen. And if you continue to surround yourself with those type of people, unfortunately, instead of helping you to get closer to your goals and your dreams, instead of helping you to realize the things that you're looking to accomplish, guess what they do? They pull you away. They pull you in the opposite direction. And I tell you, that's not a very easy thing to do. I think about, particularly, I had a good friend of mine. You know, this was my buddy. I mean, every single day we talked on the phone. Every weekend we hung out. I mean, I remember all the time we would head out to South Beach, and we had primarily a social type of friendship. I mean, it was always around going to sporting events. It was always around going out to different clubs and venues and having a great time, socializing and so forth. And then I realized that my life started to take a different path, and I started to get a little more serious about different aspects of my life. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to grow a business. I wanted to take my career to the next level. I wanted to make more impact. And every time I tried to have meaningful conversations with this friend, all they ever wanted to talk about was all the social things. All they wanted to talk about was what party was going on, what event was taking place that weekend, or the next sporting event, or what this particular person was up to. And so I noticed I had gotten to that place in the relationship, in our friendship, that I came to a realization, wait a second, maybe perhaps I've outgrown this particular friendship. Because this friendship is very much one-dimensional. See, our friendship was primarily all social. It was about going out. It was about entertaining. It was about going to different sporting events and so forth. And what I realized is that now I was getting to a different place in my life. I had a new set of priorities. But this friend only had one thing to offer in our friendship. And so I'll be the first one to tell you that it was very difficult for me when I came to the realization that it was time for me to cut ties with that particular friendship. It was very, very difficult for me to move on. And the reason why is because this had been my friend for so long. This had been my friend now for months and even for years. The reason why it was so difficult is because we had so many good memories together. The reason why it was so difficult is because I felt like, I really knew him, and we had so many funny memories and people we hung out with and so forth. But I was so crystal clear that the path and the direction that I was heading to, that this friendship was not going to be sustainable. And I'll be the first one to admit to you that it was very, very emotionally draining for me when I realized that my friend, who didn't necessarily do anything to me, it wasn't like he did something to violate our friendship. It wasn't like he stabbed me in the back. It wasn't as if he specifically did something, but we had just gotten to that place in our friendship where it was time to sever ties. And that was a very, very, very difficult thing for me to do. And I tell you, I really, really weighed heavily on making that decision. And even after finally building the courage to make that decision, I felt very bad about it. And the reason being is because I felt as if I had basically abandoned the friendship, even though the person didn't necessarily do anything to me. But what I came to a realization is that the moment that I severed ties with that particular friendship, that it made room for new friendships and different type of friendships that now had much greater depth to it. So now I started to form friendships with people who were at the same place that I was, and made different things a priority, like their spirituality. I started having different types of friendships with people who are also working on developing and growing their business. I started to have different type of friendships with people who are really committed to strengthening their personal relationships with the people most important to them in their lives and so forth. And so I started to attract new type of friendships, and friendships that weren't just one-dimensional. But I tell you this, that I believe personally that the only reason why these new friendships came into my life is because I was willing to make room for them by severing some old ties. And here's what I got to say to you. Chances are you are holding on to something right now in your personal life. You're holding on to something in your business. You're holding on to something that unless you're willing to cut ties, unless you're willing to separate yourself from that thing, then unfortunately, guess what happens? You won't make room for this, whatever it is that you desire for in your life. So if you're looking to have some masterminds, some great people that you can connect with, some people that can help you to take your business to the next level, guess what? You got to make room for those type of friendships. If you're looking to grow from a spiritual standpoint, then guess what? You've got to make sure that you spend some time in growing those type of relationships and spending some time to invest in those areas in your life. And truth be told, you cannot do that if you're occupying that space with toxic or negative people, or people who just simply you have outgrown. And one of the most difficult things that all of us will ever have to do is to evaluate our friendships, evaluate different things that are going on in our life, and make the decision to cut ties and make the decision to step up and move forward to the next level. And see, what happens to a lot of us is there's something that we're holding on to. And we're holding on to it so tight that it is literally to our detriment. And so maybe perhaps it's a relationship that we know that has run its course and it's time to let go. Maybe perhaps it's a grudge. Somebody did something to us in the past and we believe that holding on to the grudge is like we're paying them back. And maybe perhaps we didn't realize, somebody once said that when you hold on to a grudge, it's the equivalent of you drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, because that grudge is literally toxic and it's slowly killing you on the inside. You see, a lot of times we're holding on to something and it's literally dragging us in the opposite direction of what we want to make happen, in the opposite direction of our goals, the opposite direction of our dreams, the opposite direction of the things that we want to make come to fruition in our life. And we have to come to the realization that sometimes the best course of action is to learn how to simply open your hand and let go. And so maybe perhaps you've heard this story before. You know that there's this really cool, a really fast little creature by the name of spider monkeys. And these spider monkeys were existing out in the forest area. And these people in this particular village were adamant about trying to capture these monkeys. And so they came up with all these little strategies and ways to try to catch these monkeys. And so they tried shooting the monkeys with tranquilizer guns in the trees. But these monkeys are so fast and so agile. When they would attempt to shoot these monkeys, they were the hardest, most difficult targets. And so they were wasting all these tranquilizers trying to shoot these monkeys down from the tree. Virtually impossible to get these monkeys. Then they said, hey, you know what? Let's do this. Let's put some nets out and see if we can go ahead and capture these monkeys. So they started throwing nets out, and these monkeys were so agile and they're so small, they were slipping through the little holes in the nets, and they just couldn't be able to catch these monkeys. So they tried putting some rope out and seeing if they could set little traps to get these monkeys, and it just wasn't happening for them. And then so finally somebody came up with a brilliant idea. And so all they did is they just simply got a bottle with a fairly narrow neck with an opening just big enough so that the monkeys could stick their hand inside. And inside the bottles, they decided to put one of the monkeys' favorite little treats. And so they knew that there's this particular nut that the monkeys really love. And so they put these little nuts inside the bottle. Now, here's the beautiful thing. These bottles basically had a thin neck opening. And so here's what happened every single time. These little monkeys would detect that these little nuts were around. However they sense these nuts, I don't know if it's through their smell or just looking around and just trying to find these little nuts. And they'd come across this bottle, and then all of a sudden they would see that there's some nuts in there or smell that there's some nuts in there. And the little monkey would stick its hand inside a little narrow opening and literally find the nut inside and then squeeze and go ahead and make a fist to grab onto the nuts. But here's the crazy thing that happened. Once these little spider monkeys had the nuts in their hand and they made the fist, now because their fist is significantly bigger, they couldn't pull their hands back out of the bottle. And so all these little capturers would do is they would wait for the little monkeys to find these little bottles, stick their little hands inside, grab the nuts, hold on, and then they would go on and go after the monkeys. And because of their hand being in the bottle and because of the weight of the bottle, they couldn't move around as fast as they could. So they became much easier targets to catch. And so that story is shared all the time, because the crazy thing is that these little spider monkeys would be able to get away if all they did was simply open up their hands, let go of the nuts, and pull their hand back out of the bottle. But these little monkeys, when they would stick their hand inside and they would grab the nuts, they would hold on to the nuts so tightly, and they would refuse to open up their palms, refuse to open up their hands. And because of that, that would lead to them actually being captured. And it's been said that they took it a step even further. And while these little monkeys had their hands inside these bottles, that you could go ahead and throw nuts all around them, and they still wouldn't let go of the little nut that was in their hand that had their hand stuck in the bottle. It's even been said that you could even throw little banana treats around them, and they would still have their fists closed tight and not be willing to open up their hands to pull it outside. And let me just tell you something. How often do we do that in life? Where we're holding on to something and we are literally closing our fists so tight that we have literally allowed ourselves to become trapped by this thing that we're holding on to. And so we're trapped emotionally, we're trapped financially, we are trapped, and we're kept away from realizing our goals and our dreams, all because of the fact that we don't have enough fortitude and we don't have enough wisdom to go ahead and just simply open our hands. And so I'm challenging you right now to be thinking about for a moment, what is it that you're holding on to so tightly that is keeping you from moving forward, that is keeping you to get to your goals and your dreams, that is keeping you from making things happen? And so, you know what, that's one of those little silly little stories, but it creates a powerful visual. And so when we look at that little spider monkey, we're saying, man, how silly is that little monkey, that little monkey can't even open up its hands. But you know what? Sometimes we have areas in our life that we're doing the exact same thing, and it's just not as obvious to us. And so my challenge to you is to start looking at your life and start thinking about what are the areas in your life that you're just holding on to. And I can look back in many instances in my own personal life. You know, I remember getting a tip from one of my friends one time that told me about this great company that I should invest in. And so I remember spending some money and buying some stock. And right after buying the stock, that company significantly, the stock value went up significantly. And then all of a sudden, the company started to have a couple of financial issues. And so there started becoming drops in the price. And so everybody was literally just bailing out. People were saying, hey, you know what? It's too risky. We made our profit. I'm going to get out of there. And I was just holding on, and I was just creating a storyline for myself. Oh, I invested my money. I'm not going to be willing to, I can make more money. I'm going to just hold on. And I just kept holding on to the stock, holding on to the stock, holding on to the stock. And sometimes you got to do that. But the writing was on the wall that this company was in some serious, serious problems, the kind of problems that they may not recover from. And I just kept holding on and holding on and holding on. And finally, guess what? I got an email saying that the company went financially bankrupt. And so I got a lot of my friends who had also invested with this particular company, who had bought some of the stock. And guess what? Majority of them, they got their money out. And so maybe perhaps they didn't make as much as they wanted to, or maybe they took a little 10% loss, but they were willing to open their hands. They were willing to let go. But me, no, not me. I was holding on so tight. I refused to let go. And because of that, guess what happened? I lost all of it. I lost my entire investment. Literally, that stock turned into a penny stock and the company would eventually become insolvent. Why? Because I was so committed and so adamant about holding on that I just wasn't willing to let go. And sometimes we got to be able to evaluate our situation and literally start asking ourselves the question, is this a situation where I continue to hold on, or is this a situation where I need to learn to start letting go? And so I want you to just literally start thinking about your life and think about the different aspects of your life and think for a moment, is there something or someone or a past experience that you're just clinging on to and that you refuse to let go, that is keeping you from moving forward, that is keeping you from getting to the next level? And if that's the case, I want you to seriously seriously consider about letting go.